Hello and welcome to the Music Retailers Podcast. I'm your host, Donovan Bankhead, and together you and I are going to listen to and learn from some of my favorite instrumental music retailers, manufacturers, well, anyone else that I think would be interesting. My goal is to provide a podcast where you can learn something new in every episode.
My guest today is Michael Santander. And if you've been a fan of the podcast for a while, you've noticed it's kind of been a gap. And the gap just gets from either me getting busy or trying to book guests who then, sometimes getting music store owners and managers together. It's like trying to herd squirrels. It's very difficult to do. But when I wanted to kick this thing back off, I just started going through my list of who I think would be interesting and that blend. I made the Venn diagram of who would be interesting and who owes me. Who can I count on that will definitely do this? And Santander came to the top of my list. Michael, glad to have you here. You and I have been friends for years, and we had a mentor relationship through NAMYP, and just have really just enjoyed our friendship and relationship we've had over the years, and looking forward to many years to come. But it's nice to get to do this. And your boss, Leslie, has been a previous guest on here as well. Yep. And so this week, and I don't think I've ever had that where I've had an owner be on and I've had a general manager be on. So this is gonna be on all new things. It's gonna be a lot of fun.
You'll get all the dirt. You get all the dirt.
I can't wait. Well, Leslie's pretty good at sharing her own dirt. She's kind of an open book, so I'm looking forward to that. So anyway, this is gonna be great. So for those who don't know, Instrumental Music Center, Tucson, Arizona.
Yep.
Now a single location entity in Tucson. At one point you did have two locations, but you kind of wised up and got down to one. Made your life so much easier. I'm having to learn that lesson. I keep buying stores, but anyway, you've been the GM there. Kind of give me the background on how long you've been there. Because I know before this you were working at another store, but just give us the rundown on how you ended up at IMC, what your first roles were when you got there, and just give us the 3-minute journey from before to now.
3 minutes? I mean, you know me.
And go.
All right, you do it.
If I say 3 minutes, it'll be 10, and that'll work out just fine.
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. Like I said before you hit record, I don't know why I'm here. You have amazing people on this. They're super intelligent. They drop tons of awesome knowledge and wisdom, and I feel lucky to be part of it. So thank you.
Oh, you're in good company with all of the guests up here, and you're definitely one of our up and coming bright minds of our industry. So I'm really glad to have you as a guest, but also even gladder to have you as a friend. So
let's just end it there. We don't have to keep going.
Hey, thanks for listening, everybody. It's only downhill from here.
It's gonna get rough. All right, so how did I end up here? The 3-minute version. So I started working in music retail right out of high school as just a part-time job, and I worked for a retailer who had been around for about 45 years in town, and it was a son who had taken it over from a father. And that son was now running the 45-year-old business. I was fresh out of high school, and I did their summer rental cleanups and then went to college. And then every 2 to 4 months, whenever I'd be back home for something, I'd pick up part-time work. And then I'd work all summer, and then I'd do the holiday season and stuff like that. And then eventually, when I moved back to Tucson, I worked for them full-time and just climbed the ranks of local music retail, as you do, and became essentially a general manager of that business. And when that retailer forgot to pay their taxes and shut down their store, maybe that's the first part of advice that we should just give the listeners.
Pay your taxes. Yeah.
You should do that. So that among some other things, forced that business out of existence pretty quick. So then I was without a job very quickly, literally overnight. I was at a birthday party, my wife's birthday party, and they called up and said, we're closing. And so I think that's important to know because I was able to, because of my relationships in the industry, I was able to call a competitor who I work for now and say, hey, I'm in a predicament. I could use a job. And they said, we know you and you're kind of okay. So that's how I ended up where I am now. 13 years later, I've been here 13 years. So I think this August will be 13 years. So I called up Leslie. I said, hey, you know me. We've competed. This is the position I'm in. I'd love an opportunity to talk about what I could do for your store. And they said, we know you. We like you. We've got some toilets that need cleaned. And I said, whoa. So I interviewed at a couple other places real quick. And I quickly realized that I kind of liked this mentality where they weren't just like, oh, we're so impressed with you. Not that I'm impressive, but it wasn't like, I was coming with like a resume. I was like, I know how to do this stuff. And they were like, that has nothing to do with what we do. It's the business side of it. You understand musical products maybe, but like, that's not who we are. And that was my first like little lesson into like, oh, there's so much more to what we do than just the widgets that we sell. And so after I talked to a couple other people in the industry, I quickly came back to IMC and said, I think I kind of like you and I want to talk more. And they kind of didn't budge from that. IMC was like, no, really, like you can start cleaning the toilets and we'll kind of figure this out. So I made it a personal goal when I came on that like, I'm just going to destroy the sales. Like, I'm just going to become a sales rock star. I'm going to show them something they've never seen before. And I did, and it was fun. And I like selling. And at my heart and my core, I love selling musical instruments. So I loved being able to dive into that. And I also really love people, whether they're our customers or our coworkers. So being able to join those two things was something that the business needed at that time. They could have really used that support. So I kind of fell into that role pretty comfortably and worked my way through that. And so now general manager of Instrumental Music Center. That's where I am now.
I'm listening to you say that, and it's really striking a chord with me. No pun intended. Because my story was very similar. When I started in music retail as a Tulsa band, started off literally like cleaning toilets, and it was the lowest position available. I was, unlike you, I had no background or resume, so I was thrilled to have it, and just excited to be in it. But when I came to, and that store needed someone that cared about what was happening. And then when I came to Springfield Music, now Ernie Williams Music, same boat. Good business, good company, but it needed me. It needed the thing that I could bring to the table. And if they didn't need me, then there would be no need to hire me. And right now I'm hiring for a store manager position.
Yeah.
And I often think about, as I think about like our culture and the things that we're doing, I often want to, I work hard to try to make our business the type of place that employees would want to be in and so on and so forth. But the reality is, while all that is true, I also need people, and I need people to bring their special sauce to help make this place better than what it would be without them if we get the right person. And just like you've done for IMC, just like I did for Springfield Music, and just like many people have done for Springfield Music over the years for me, like they came in and made it better, and some of them made it better even after they left. And I don't mean that as a snarky, like they made us better by leaving. I didn't mean that. I mean, like they had such a lasting, and some people did do that. But we had so many people make us better, like long-term, even after their departure. That's how, that's how much of an impact they had.
Yeah.
And that's such an important mindset, I think, for employees to have, is to recognize, like, I want to be in a place where I can make my mark. And if you've got a spark, if you've got a thing, to find that place where you can make an impact, is a really, really great skill to have.
You said so many smart things right there. The impact that an individual can have on a small business is massive. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things that we have as small business people, is we're able to change and be malleable and be impacted by the people that we hire. And that's hard to do in a giant corporation. But when you've got these smaller ecosystems that we work in, it's an amazing opportunity to work in those spaces and to have a positive impact on your company or the people that you work with. The other thing that I think is really cool that you said, that should be said loudly to lots of general managers or owners, is you have to hire good people and release that grit, right? Like, especially like I didn't start the business that I work in, and I mean neither did you, but for those people that we know in the industry that did start those businesses, that's hard. That's a hard thing
Yeah.
to do, to release that and to give that trust over to individuals. But that's the key. That's the key to the expansion, to the growth. And when
It
somebody
is.
like you or maybe me, come into those businesses and offer that growth, you got to release it. You got to welcome that.
You're exactly right. I mean, or we're exactly right. We're so smart.
We're so smart. We're
You
doing
know,
so good.
Lee Coates, who was the owner of Springfield Music before me, like he that's exactly what he did. And I think partly in his mind, he was ready to not be as involved anymore.
Yeah.
But he also believed in me, and honestly, he believed in me more than I believed in myself. Which that gave me. I mean, that's a lot. He was a very successful person, one of the most successful people I had ever like personally had like any kind of real personal relationship with. Um, and he believed in me, which gave me a lot of confidence. He gave me a lot of trust, and he gave me a lot of leeway. And not everything I did was great. Some things were strikeouts. Some things were cluster bombs. I want to say the other word,
I
but I'm
know
going
what you're gonna say.
to. Yeah. I mean, there was a couple of disasters in there, and that
Yeah.
were pretty bad. But there was also multiple home runs that transformed it. But always throughout all of it, he had my back and
Yeah.
allowed me to run with it. Now he didn't allow me to run with it just like carte blanche. Like it wasn't like here's the keys, go get the credit card, go get it. Like there was a
But
leash there, and the leash got bigger as I had more success and more
yeah.
influence.
And that level's different for every individual, every owner, every person that's determining that, right? I mean,
Yeah,
there's no playbook that you can say like first you do this and then this. It's like, no, you have to earn that trust, and once you do, you can start releasing the things that you are most comfortable with releasing.
yeah,
There's people that I know have been on your podcast that are, high up in their business, the owner or president or CEO, and they're still have their hand gripped on some core elements. That's a normal thing in our industry. Is you've got somebody
yeah,
who is, the owner of the business, and they're like, oh, I don't let anybody do the lesson scheduling. And you're
right.
like, what? And it's just like, no, it just means so much to me. And that's fine. That's how they want to run it. But that's for them, that's the element they're not going to give up immediately.
That can be very limiting. And
Yeah.
then conversely, sometimes you have that with people like in that interview with Dave Zimmern from Hickey's Music. There were some elements, lower level elements of his business that he still handled, not because he didn't trust anyone else to do it. He just liked it. And
Right.
to me, that's the real level of like, man, you've made it. When now, as a business owner, you're doing parts of the job that aren't like that. I mean, not everything you do, but you've got parts you're doing that you're
Yeah.
just doing just because you like it.
Yeah.
Doesn't have to be a high level thing. It's just a thing that you enjoy.
Yeah.
The other thing I was thinking about again as you were speaking that was kind of making me think is how important it is as business owners or managers, people responsible for hiring and firing, make sure that we get the right people in. And up to my experience, I've hired hundreds of people at this point. Um, I haven't yet found out a foolproof way to get the right people on board during the interview process. And so we put as much effort and time as we can to the interviews to try to get it right, but inevitably, you end up getting it wrong. And this position we're hiring for the Springfield store manager, we've got a guy in that role right now. He's been here a little over 2 months. Super nice guy. Would be a good salesperson, not as a manager. And
Yeah.
so we've already had a conversation with him, and he's aware of it. We told him like, hey man, we like you. Like you're a nice guy. This just isn't the right fit. So why don't you look for something? We're going to look for someone. Whichever of us finds our next thing first, we'll move on for it. But we trust you to do the best you can while you're here. We won't just cut you loose and let you starve. And and so but we know that it's important for us to go out and find that right person. But dang, that's been a lesson hard learned, because I think for 20 years I've hung on to people too long. Either they're the wrong people in the beginning, and I'm just hoping I can turn them around, or sometimes they used to be the right people, but just the worm has turned, and like
Yeah.
it's time for a change of scenery. And it can be hard for those people, either out of a sense of loyalty or maybe out of a sense of fear, to make that change on their own. And you get people that are burned out and need to find new inspiration elsewhere, that you've allowed to sit around too long. And those people are occupying seats that other people can come in and make an impact. So we should end it right there. Like that is you can take that and then just, all right, how am I going to transform my business
That's
by
it.
either getting someone in the right seat or getting some people out that are in the wrong seat, So,
Well, and that's where these conversations are often wildly impactful. Is I think we know what the right decision is a lot of the time. It's
yeah,
like deep in our gut, especially when it involves our people and our people that we care about. It's in there. You know what you're supposed to do. But then you have that conversation. You say some of those things out loud to somebody else, and they go, "You need to let them go." You go, "Yeah, I do." And our industry is really good at that. And where there's these environments and these support systems of people who do what we all do, like you and I call you and I'm like, I don't know what to do with this thing. And you're like,
yeah.
the answer is pretty clear. And I'm like, it is, bye. And it helps a lot. You need to get your head out of your space to make those decisions sometimes. But
Yeah.
I guarantee them, and I bet the most times that I've called you with a sticky situation, it's usually a person. That's where it is. That's where I get hung up. It just feels like I wish the decision was easier, but it's a small business. And I hate saying we're a small family because we're not. We're coworkers
Right.
and we're a team.
Yep.
And
We're a team.
that's something that you may have fed me at one point. But it doesn't change the fact that we care about people. Yeah.
That definitely is a thing I believe strongly. As a matter of fact, I was doing an interview today for this manager position, and I kind of liked the gal I was interviewing, and then she started talking about how being a family and how she's looking for the family, and I was like, bad fit here, like, because I don't believe in that. I don't believe in your work being your family. Like, I think it should be a team.
Yeah.
I think it should be like friendly acquaintances. I think you could have like dear relationships there for sure, but it's not a family because A, we're choosing these people. We don't choose our family, and B, we can fire these people. Like, and we can't do that with your family. So I also think in today's world. So I think if you're an employer or manager, especially if maybe you're a little bit older or not like super plugged in, there's a lot of revolt with the workers now. They don't like the idea of companies calling themselves family because they feel like they're being manipulated by that term. They feel like that calling us family means you're going to overwork me and overpay me. You're going to overwork me and underpay me.
I'll take that. I'll take that job that you're hiring for. What the underwork and overpay? Yeah, I'd like to apply for that management position you've got.
So I think in general, like calling your work comrades a family is a bad idea. It is a pet peeve of mine. I don't like that. I like team quite a bit because I think that's a really great example of really what we do.
Yeah.
We work together as a team. And if we think about like professional sports, well, we can hire and fire players. We can't. Trading's a little harder to do. Call. I wouldn't like to call up Taylor and like, hey, I know that you guys need a repair tech, and I need a this. Like, how about we trade for one of those? That might be kind of fun, but we can't do that. But we can hire and fire coaches. Like, we can change ownership. Like, I think it's, and if we were running our business like we would a team, like we would a franchise, we would, really be more intentional about it. And we would think about, like, do I have the best players on this team to win? Do I have the best players on this team to have the kind of cultural impact in our community that we want to have? Like, and do I want to build a team to win at all costs? Damn the outcomes of everything else. Like, am I willing to rob, cheat, and steal just to win? I think thinking through that. And some people are. Some people were like, I don't care what the rules are, what the legalities are, anything else. I just want to win. Other people are like, I'd like to win, but I want to do it the right way. And I'd rather lose and do it the right way than win and do it the wrong way. And I think knowing for yourself what that is important.
When do you think that shift happened? Because it feels recent-ish, right? Like in the last 10 years, that shift of
employees not wanting to be called a family.
Yeah, and that on a bigger scale of you wanting to work for a business that was a family business and being part of the family and all that sort of stuff. So like, no, I work at a job and I'm proud of my job.
That's post-pandemic.
It is, right?
Without a doubt.
It's very new, and I don't know when people are going to be listening to this, but right now in 2024, that's a new concept. It's only 5 years old tops.
Yeah, I'd say it's less old than that, but I do think it's a concept that's been building.
Yeah.
because large corporations, especially, not so much like true family businesses, not so much those, but large corporations have over the decades clearly demonstrated that they will put themselves first above the people. And they will put executive teams' interest over the workers.
Yeah.
And CEO compensation pay is, gone just out of whack compared to the average worker's pay.
Yeah.
And benefits to the other executives. I mean, it used to be, I can't remember what the numbers were, but I think it used to be that average CEO pay was like 10 to 20 times above the average worker's pay, and now it's like hundreds of times above
Yeah.
it. It's just it's offensive and insane and really unsustainable. And during the during my lifetime, I mean, people were seeing this, and the troubles of like all the economic issues in the 70s, and then we've had like economic issues in the 90s, of course, in the 2000s, .com bomb collapse,
Yep.
2008 recession, and then the COVID recessions. Like, we have seen this happen over and over again, where companies prioritize themselves and the executives over anybody else. Now, to one degree, I understand that. I do think a company should prioritize its own survival over its employees,
Yeah.
because that's the only way the company can then come back and rehire its employees. So I get that, but that excludes the executive staff and everything else. Like, if the company's suffering, I think the executive staff should suffer too. So
Yeah.
certainly our company did when we went through the all the COVID stuff. We had to lay people off like a lot of other people did,
Yeah.
and we did multiple rounds of layoffs. And I was on that second round of layoffs because after the first round, I just stopped bad. That's like I was still working and getting paid. And so I laid myself off, and I kept working. Maybe I own it now, so I'm not have to worry about any labor laws. But I kept working, and I didn't own it then. I was just an employee,
Yeah.
but I laid myself off and kept working. And because I just felt like, all of the employees who worked so hard to help build a life for me, I needed to do my part to try to preserve a company for them.
Yeah.
And but I think definitely post recession, people have gotten sick of it.
Yeah.
So and so I think as an employer, you should be really wary about calling yourselves a family.
Yeah. Anybody doing interviews or hiring or posting about, working, like it's just a mindset that's very, very important to be aware of. The kind of people, and we're not talking 15-year-olds that are looking for jobs. We're talking full-fledged, completely baked adults, with background and experience. And they're like, don't call me family, but I will also work very hard for you, but don't call me family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. They don't want the emotional manipulation that comes with that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. So tell me a little bit about the culture at IMC. We're going to sort of pivot back over. And so we've talked before, like previous episodes, if people want to know, the basics of IMC, they can jump over and listen to Leslie Sturm's episode, which was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But that's been a few years ago. So tell me, how would you describe the culture today?
We're going through that. We've talked about it. The culture wise culture by design. I haven't studied my head. Look at that.
A lot of our friends are doing that, and we just did that this year too. So
so it's been a thing that's been bouncing around the industry, and we've struggled with defining our culture on a larger scale. You can say a couple things. We're nice, we're kind, we care about this and that, but then really mapping it out. And when somebody asks us a more pointed questions, or when we ask ourselves those pointed questions to try to guide ourselves, it's become harder. I also think this is something that maybe you have to be a certain sized business to justify doing. Like when there's only 5 employees at your store, maybe, and everyone's around each other all the time. If that main person is establishing a quality culture, I don't know if you need to define it in a very detailed way, but then you've got 7 stores now, stretched across states. You've got lots of employees. It's like, this needs, how can you make sure that culture is present when you are not? And so I feel like we are at that point now as a business where we've just got one location, and often the owners or the upper management and leadership team are around. But we've grown to a point now that we're a little more spread out. We've got some office locations, we've got a repair shop that's separate, we're on the road more often. And so we noticed that that stretching is the reason that we needed to help define those core cultural elements to our business. So
Yeah.
what are those? We're going through and we're like, we had a team meeting this morning and we talked about blameless problem solving. That's one of the ones that's in the book, and we have our own definition of that and what it means to us. We've established a variety of those sorts of behaviors or fundamentals, as the system calls it. But I would say on a grander scale, without going into those details, the culture of IMC is supportive of the individuals. That's a really important thing, especially in the music industry. People get a job and they don't always want to just devote their life to the retail store. Maybe they're getting the job because they are a gigging musician and they need a job during certain times, and they will still give you everything they've got, but they have some requirements. And that may be a little unique to our industry, where people have these outside passions that they want to continue to pursue, yet they also want this stable income and job. So that's always been a priority. And I don't think we've ever tried to crush someone's dreams, in order to get them to work more at the store. So whether you're a teacher or you're a repair tech or you're a salesperson or a manager or whatever, I can think of individuals in almost every area of our business who also devote their life to something else outside the store. Not necessarily a second job. Some of them are second jobs, but they have this other passion. It's usually musical. So I think that's a core element to us, is we really welcome that, and that shows that that person is passionate and creative. And those are all elements that we want to have. And then when we hire people, we always talk about how we hire for personality. And that's huge. We just brought on 3 people this week. We finally brought them on. So 3 new people. And not all of them, dare I say any of them, have music retail backgrounds. And they're coming in at entry-level sales positions, but they're great people. They're engaging. They have awesome eye contact and clarity in their speech, better than me, better than the words I use. I'm always stammering. I mean, they're fun people to talk to. I can teach them what a Bach 180S is. Like, I'm not worried about that. I can show them what the specs are on a guitar. But those are the things that create the really high quality culture that I think IMC has. Is we hire for these personality attributes that put us in a spot to be like family.
Like good friends.
I like good close friends. No, it makes a solid team. Is because all these people, they're not the same personality. I don't mean to imply that, but they have these elements that we're not trying to change. We're celebrating, and then also, they have these other things, like they're good musicians or good at sales or something like that. So I think that's the main thing. And then beyond that, maybe like the system of IMC and how that works is we have departments, and even in our small business right now, there's about 30 of us that work here, and that's including private teachers. And so we've got like a lessons department and somebody who runs that. We've got a retail department and a repair department and an educational services, school service department. And so all of those people have somebody to report to, and it's not like everyone's mingling. There are some stores that have that, where everyone's on the same floor, on the same sales floor, interacting. We definitely have areas and spaces that people work at then, and direct reports that those people go to. So the culture of IMC is this tiered system where, we're all under Leslie at the top, and then they have direct reports that they all go to. So I think that also helps to create these little ecosystems. And then I meet with all of those directors or coordinators of all those different departments regularly to make sure that their culture and their missions and initiatives are all aligned with, IMC on a grander scale.
We're both doing that culture by design implementation. I think we're a few months ahead of you. We started that at the beginning of the year, and that kind of came through a conversation that our Order of the Golden Fog group put together, which is a little.
Talk about that.
The Fight Club. It's a group that you'd put together with a few other industry folks, and we're always
Yeah.
open to other friends that may want to participate in that, little monthly meetings and various
Yeah.
topics. And someone had said they want to talk about culture, and it just so happened that a few of our friends were doing this Culture by Design program. It sounded really interesting, and so we've been on it. And we found it really useful. And matter of fact, I had one of our managers tell me a couple weeks ago that when I first presented that we were going to do it, he just was like, "Okay, whatever." And of course, he didn't tell me that because he's not that. I wish he would be the kind
He
that
did
would
with
just
his
tell me.
face.
No, he doesn't. He just acts like he's going to be okay, but in his mind, he's not really all that on board with it. And I actually dislike that the most, genuinely. But he'll give it a try, but he said, I've been doing this and doing the program that we've laid out. He's like, I'm actually really pleased with how well things are going. It's making. He thought it would be a little too fluffy, from what he thought at the beginning. He said, no, I'm actually seeing the tangible results. It's helping to identify our culture and create clarity to it. And the thing that I love about our culture at Ernie Williamson Music is when you tell people that you're looking to hire people that are the right cultural fit, sometimes people wonder, well, what does that mean? Does that mean that I have to be liberal? Does that mean I have to be conservative? Does that mean I have to be religious? Does that mean I have to be atheist? Does that mean I have to be, what does that mean? Do I have to be the same skin color as you? What does being the right fit mean? Because that can maybe sometimes be a buzzword that can be used the wrong way too.
Yeah.
And when I look at our team, boy, we've got people of all of those ilks. We've got conservatives and we've got liberals and we've got Trump people and non-Trump people and we've got religious people. Yeah, it's all music. It's literally for all of us. Music has been an important part of our lives, and we not only do we personally enjoy it, but it's been a meaningful thing for us. Sustained us in hard times, provided sounds to our joy and good times. It's just been something important. It's been something that we've loved, and then I think they love the challenge of getting to work in a business that's constantly trying to grow, adapt, evolve, and improve. And that's kind of what we're looking for is for those types of people. And so therefore their other strongly held beliefs just doesn't matter. I mean, I used to be religious. I used to be conservative. I'm the total opposite of all those things now, but it doesn't matter in our company. And sometimes those conversations even just come out around the water cooler, but there's no real hard feelings about it. At the end of it, okay, well, anyway, we got repairs to do for this school. And we got this new director that we're talking to, let's go team, and cause that's what we're here for, and, that culture by design thing has been a really good thing. I would encourage anyone who's, first of all, I guess the only thing I might slightly disagree with you on, I would encourage anyone to look in that. I think even if you had a team of 5 people, you're never too small to be intentional about your culture. I think even if you're a single person entity, to try to think about well, what do I want my brand to represent? Because I remember several years ago, I started a little side business, which is now part of Ernie Williamson. It's called Fret Spot. It was it's basically a high-end bass guitar specialty shop, online shop. And the only thing I really knew about it is I want to be people's friends in the boutique based business. That's what I want to be. I want to be their friend. I don't want to be a salesperson. I want to be their friend. And I want them to view me as a friend. I don't want to haggle over price. I don't want to bicker back and forth about stuff. I want to give the service the way I would if someone was truly a friend. They're going to have my cell phone number. They can text whenever. I really want to do this. And sure enough, that set the business apart. But that started from the very beginning, and that thing took off more. I always thought it would just be this tiny little deal. And at one time, I was making as much money doing that as I was my actual day job. Yeah,
wild. That's
and now
insane.
that does probably makes more money than my day job. But so I think being intentional about your culture, it's never too early and it's never too late.
Yeah. You're not wrong. I could see the small business owner going, this is a lot for not a giant payout. How deep do I have to go into this program? How much of this Kool-Aid do I have to drink to make an impact? But you're right. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. I think that it becomes necessary. Or even more so, it becomes critical at a certain point. that you can get away with not defining a lot of that stuff when you, the leader, the owner, the entity
Totally
behind
agree.
everything, is there all the time. But there's like a tipping point where, as soon as you're not around as often as you need to be, then it's like, whoa, that better be defined real clearly. Otherwise, it's like a game of telephone, right? It's just,
Yeah.
I kind of, this person has a version of the culture and they're giving it to someone else, to someone else, to someone else. And inevitably that person's going to be on the phone with the customer misrepresenting who you are. And that's just creates a
You're
terrible
exactly
thing.
right. I mean, we noticed that years ago when we had purchased our second store, which was an hour away,
Ugh.
and for years could never get the culture of that store to be right. And then finally it just dawned on me, or I say that, probably someone told me, that very little things actually dawn on me. I, Someone told me, I'm sure that like, it's because I'm not there.
Yeah.
Like, I would try to go down there a lot, but a lot would be 1, maybe 2 days a week. Um, Whereas the store in Springfield, I was there every day,
Yeah.
many times open to close. So of course, like my thoughts and beliefs and feelings would impact the culture just because I was in that store every single day. Whereas coming to that store that's an hour away once a week or twice a week or once every 2 weeks even,
Yeah.
sometimes I just can't have that big of an impact. And then, of course, once we started adding 3 stores, 4 stores, it just became even more
Yeah.
obvious of like, man, each one of these stores has a different culture. And to some degree, I'm okay with they each have their own little special flavor, but it's got to ultimately still feel like we're all playing on the same team. We're all working together. And
Well, it's,
we've gotten pretty good at doing that after a few years back. We started working on it. But the culture by design thing has made it even better. And for us, we felt like now was a great time to work on our culture because we felt like we already had a pretty good culture.
yeah.
And the time before when I worked on our culture was not particularly good. And that was a lot
Right.
harder of a lift. And I thought like
Yeah.
it'll be easier now because we actually have a pretty good culture. So, and I think
Right.
it's right. It's right. It's so much easier to do now. So,
Well, as we're going through and defining what these things are, sometimes the definitions or the inspiration for these elements come from things we're doing really well. We'll picture people within the company that are just exceptional and they do something really well, and we say, what is that thing? Let's define it and repeat it. And then there's other times that it comes right out of things we do poorly. So I mean, you can start this process anytime you want. It's I feel like we've got a commercial right here for like culture by design or whatever. But
they owe us.
they just, well, yeah, checks in the mail. But it, like, for reals, it's important to do, and you don't have to have a good culture to start, or you don't have to have a bad culture to start. You just got to like start thinking about it and talking about it. That's why it's a good conversation to have at any point in time.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, as we're talking about kind of culture, let's sort of shift over to a bigger picture. We think about our industry. Uh, Looking at the music products industry, what would you say is right with our industry?
What are we doing right as an industry? That's a big question. I don't know. I mean, we do a lot of things right. What stands out? We continue to be innovative, I think, on every level. Us as retailers, we continue to change and adapt to the environment. And products are always changing and being innovative. And I mean, that seems like such a cop out answer. I don't know. What are we doing right? Innovation. Innovation is always I don't know. That's a weird one. I guess on the tip of our tongue, the negatives are more prominent, right? Like, you're like, what are we doing right? And I'm like, well, I can think of what we're doing wrong.
Well, that's the next question. I love that. I mean, you guys, in so many ways are kindred spirits because that is my natural instinct too. Is what's wrong, you know. Now, I think that's part
What
of
do you
what
jump to
makes
though?
us successful.
What do you jump to
I
though
think it
when you're
makes
like,
us successful.
what did we do right? What's the first thing that pops into your head?
I think one of the things we do right in the industry is I think it's an industry that is very accepting of all types of people. Now, it's had a reputation over the years of being dominated by white males, right?
I think it still is
Um,
though, right?
Sure, but not because that's how like there's some cabal of white males that wants it that way. I think many of the white males in our industry are celebrate when we see people of color and see women involved. Like I for maybe it's just because I hang out with good people, but like everyone I know celebrates the diversity that we see coming into the industry. But I think the diversity that most people want to see is the diversity that they look different than me, but they're doing the same thing as me.
hundred
So
percent.
we're fine if it's a woman or person of color, but do they play the trumpet or the guitar? Because that's what we're doing here.
Yeah.
It's harder to fathom maybe when it's like EDM or something else, a thing that we can't more easily relate to. But I think we do celebrate that
I'd like to
quite a
see
bit.
I'd like to see the fruits of that labor sooner than later. Like celebrating it. I I'd like to say yes, but I'd like to see it. I'd like to see it happening more often, and not just the celebration of it. I'd like to see those people in positions of power more regularly. And I think we all would, but I just that's a hard thing. I feel like for me to say like, oh, we're doing that really well as a white male in a position of power. I'm like, I just shouldn't even be me saying that. Like, I don't feel like I'm in a place where I could do that. But I would absolutely love to celebrate people being in a position of power that look differently than me and have a social background differently than me. But I think that's
Yeah.
also going to take time. We give those opportunities now, and they open stores and build things that 20 years later they will have, because we're all talking about things that we got started 20, 30, 40 years ago. And so if these are changes we're looking to make now, then I'm really looking forward to seeing the fruits of that labor and that investment in those opportunities 20, 30, 40 years from now.
Yeah, I agree with you that like the fruits aren't as evident there. It's more the desire. I think
Yeah.
the desire has been there to always be kind of a big tent and have people involved. The realities of why we don't see more of that, I think, are largely very, very complicated and probably something that, the two of us can't solve, unfortunately.
We might be able to. How much time is left?
Realities.
I don't know.
Yes. That's challenging.
No,
So let's shift over to what's a far more interesting topic about what's wrong with it. So where do you think the what's wrong with our industry? What are the things that stand out
I
to you
got a
there?
lot of problems with you people. I'll
You
tell you
people.
what's wrong.
Yeah.
Um, the kick that I've been on recently that I feel is wrong is something that it's what maybe it's even part of what I said before, the innovation aspect of it. We're in one of these growth spurts as an industry, and we have got to get on the internet. Like we are so far behind as small businesses in this industry at nailing this. And I think that's something that I don't know if we're saying wrong, but that's something that I've been battling with, like the resources, the mindset, the availability of this sort of thing. Like this is something that we all kind of toyed with 10 years ago. And it's now something that we're all late to the party. There's some people that are doing it really well. Most of us are doing a mediocre job of it, and some of us are doing a terrible job of it. And I think for sustainability, that's something that we've got to be talking about as an industry. We've got to be encouraging ourselves to be great at it. We've got to be giving ourselves the resources to be successful at it. That's got to be something that is on the tip of everyone's tongue, and we are talking about and encouraging constantly, because I think that's the one thing we're going to be behind on really soon. Yeah.
You and we were just talking about this last week with Leslie, because we had hopped on a call about actually another topic, and it spilled into this. And I think you're right. So essentially, what you're talking about is independent retailers being active on e-commerce and really putting a lot of focus and effort into it, in much the same way we do our brick and mortar stores. And you're totally right that most of us have been too complacent with it and have missed the mark because it's a heavy lift. And that's the thing that is still mind-boggling. Because when we were talking with Leslie, Leslie's like, yeah, we tried to do this several years ago, but then we kind of got it, and now we're back into it
Yeah.
again. And surely there's like a easy button now to like get you all your stuff online. And I'm like, Leslie, I totally get what you're saying. I have felt the same way multiple times throughout my career, but shockingly, in the music products industry, there is no easy button to develop an e-commerce site. Like other industries have it, the pet industry has it. Like most other industries have something like that, where the distributor is actually handling all of your e-commerce, and you just sign up with them, and boom, you've got a website on day one, and like all these products available to you. They can all drop ship, and this, that, or the other. Like that capability is widely available now, but not ours. Probably the first person to figure out how to do that's probably going to make $1 million. They'll probably need to start with about $20 million, though.
It's true. Let me turn that 20 million into 1 million real quick.
Yeah. You always hear about people like investors wanting to 10x their business. You know, is there anyone that's trying to like 0.05x their business? I want to 0.05x my business. But you're right, and I can tell you, like for Ernie Williamson, like we spent a lot of money to develop our site, and if you look at it, you'll think, where did it go? But what I can tell you is like we're making sales off of it, and I always thought for the longest time I thought like, well, why would anyone come and buy a guitar from Ernie Williamson Music or Springfield Music when they could get one from Guitar Center Musician's Friends online, an online customer? Why would a customer in Oregon who doesn't know us, why would they choose us over a bigger, better known entity when the pricing is the same and everything else? And the reality is there are some people that just don't like shopping with those big stores, and so they seek out independence because they think they'll get a more personalized, better experience. Also, there's times those larger entities don't have something. They're out of something and we haven't. And so we're making those sales. Now, we're not making enough sales to maybe justify the expense at this point, but the sales are growing and growing and growing to the point where I can easily see how it will within the next year, 2 years, like that it would be much the same way as if you're ordering or opening a brick and mortar. I think anyone who's doing retail sales today, they have to think about the online component being an e-commerce component being a necessary part of what they're doing. And we're actually changing up the way we staff our internal stores. Where we've been doing it for a while, where each store had like an e-commerce person. Now we're starting to phase that position out, and we're testing a model where the retail salespeople are the e-commerce people too. Like those roles are hybrid roles, where their role is when there's a customer in the store, you're working with that. But when they're not, like you're doing the online stuff. Because like I just think that's the future. The future is less and less in-store traffic, but not non-existent, just less, and more web sales. And those two things together are going to stand apart. And so if you can combine personalized service, curation, and selection with e-commerce and the speed and delivery and customer base of e-commerce, I think you can make it.
When you had mentioned that on a previous call, and it made me think, that's the customer service position of the future. Like, I am working with my physical customers and my digital customers at all times, and creating that space for those people who are customer service representatives, they're sales specialists, whatever it is that we call them, but they're, representing the store and the business and the products to the customers that are in front of them in a variety of different spaces. I think that's the way I justified it in the way I heard it as you were saying it. It was less like, oh, you're also going to do this now. You weren't shoveling more work. It was like, no, there's a way to say this that it's within the scope of your job description. And so as one becomes a little less and there's a little less foot traffic, there's a little more online traffic, and that's how we're gonna keep it moving. I think also though, it's, we're talking about e-commerce and selling products, but it's every aspect of your business. And I think that's the bigger point. That's the bigger picture that I think we can all be doing better. I mean, how many talks have we gone to at NAMM shows about getting your Instagram, page going, and your reels and your TikTok, or whatever the flavor, social media flavor of the month is? Like, you got to have that now. That's where people are looking for businesses to connect with. Lessons, we're struggling with getting our lessons. We're not struggling. We're going to nail it. We're nailing it. we're going to get our lessons online, and not only the scheduling aspect, but then have a digital option. We've got friends in the industry that do this so well, and there's software for that to help make that easier. But that's another thing. It doesn't matter what you're doing, is my point. If you're in this industry, you need to make sure you're represented on the internet well. I mean, it makes me sound old just calling it the internet, right? Like online, I don't know what you're supposed to call it, but like you just have to be on people's phones. And I think that's one thing that we're not doing as well as we should. It's easy to some extent, and it's shockingly hard in other areas. And it's got to be something that we push harder on.
Strangely enough, right now I'm finding the hardest part. I think I've just accepted that getting the products on a page is going to be very hard to do.
Yeah.
Especially in mass, like trying to get thousands of products. I just accepted that. Now I'm struggling with just the stupid marketing side of it. Like figuring out how the hell do we connect with customers? What we're doing now isn't working. It's really pointless. Seems like Facebook does not. Unless you're going to pay, they don't want any business posts going out whatsoever if it's not going to be sponsored. Which I get. Like I get it. But like it just makes it so difficult anymore to market in the way that we used to think about.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of examples in our industry of people doing it well. And then when I look outside of our industry and see people that are doing it well, it's just difficult to do because I already have a full-time job. And it's hard to know, like, well, how am I going to do that? Like, how are we going to get a big foam suit and be the next Duolingo?
Right.
Although that they got a little fell a little out of favor here recently, but the next Scrub Daddy. Like, how am I going to make content like that? Like, I'm busy,
Yeah. Well,
the marketing side is a
I
struggle.
think it's something too that we just got to start paying for earlier in our business model. It's become more of a critical aspect of what a small business does. I remember when I started in the year 2000, 99, you had a Yellow Pages ad, right? Like you bought that thing, and that was like a huge marketing expense. And you had to have it. And then that went away, and then nothing really filled that gap for a minute. There was like, well, I'm going to have a billboard or something like that. And then internet marketing and stuff like that came around. I think you need to have that, whatever that version is currently. I think you need to have that at your business. And marketing is wildly important. And sometimes it's the owner of the company that can do it and does it really well. And if it's not, and you can realize that for yourself, that that's not a strong suit that you have, you just got to hire someone, bring someone on, take somebody in your company and cut half their job and say, doing this half the time, you're gonna do this half the time. But it takes somebody who gets your culture, who understands your product, who understands your vibe, and you got to get them to start doing it. We've been blessed. I guess it's easy for me to say we've been blessed with an incredible person that does our marketing. Our designer and our marketer are the same person, and she just does an incredible job. She's amazing. So if we didn't have that, I'd be jealous of me, and and hearing someone like me be like, just find that person. Like it was hard. And when we found that person,
it is hard,
that could commit that time and creativity, I feel like we're reaping the benefits of that constantly. And at first it was like, what am I going to do? Pay this person to design a poster? Like, I'll do it. I'll do it in Word. I'll figure it out. Like, no,
right?
No. There's value in that. And I think that's part of being representing yourself with quality on the internet is finding that person that can represent you well through graphic design and through placing your ads in the right places and create an internet presence that represents your store and your business. Wow. It's so important. I don't know if we're nailing it. I hope we're nailing it. I feel like we're nailing it. I feel like we are represented well on the internet. But I don't know, maybe when you're listening to this, it's a real crap show.
I think your stuff looks like shit, but whatever. If you're happy with it, it's fine.
Damn it.
That is clearly not true. You've given us permission to rip off some of the stuff you guys have done, or to reimagine some of the stuff you've done. The posters behind you, or stuff that your team has done.
Yeah.
Like it's really, really, really great. I totally agree with you. There was only a pause there because I was just writing down what you were saying. finding someone who can represent you well like that online. That's what you need. And over the years, we've had, oh my God, I don't know how many, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we've had 5 or 6 marketing people on our team. Oh, and then if we count the agencies, we've hired 7,
Oh.
8, 9, 10. So over 10 consistent failures all across the board.
Oof.
Uh, and I think in some respects, sometimes they're the wrong hire.
Yeah.
For one period, the last person to hold a job, he was someone who personally wasn't on social media. To
Yeah.
have him be a social media marketing person, just stupid. On that was my decision. That was so dumb. Smart guy, nice guy, great guy. But if you're not personally involved with social media, how in the world would you know what the trends are?
Yeah, I'm
Do
not
it
on
stuff.
social media, and I talk about it often. Like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what
Yeah.
resonates with audiences who utilize those tools. I'm the wrong person for that. And so finding the person that does use that and is paying attention to those trends and cares about it, that's huge. And then making sure that person has a quality relationship, work relationship with the leadership team and especially the owner, so that when something is put out there representing the company on a grand scale, that the owner of the company and those leadership people can come to that person and say, this does not align with who we are, whatever it may
Yeah.
be. And so, like, having that rapport, I mean, that's really important. You can't just hire somebody who knows how to draw or somebody who has a marketing background. It's like, no, you got to have that relationship, because especially in a small business, there's not layers of reporting and buffering, to go through. It's like, this person's going to do a thing, they're going to throw it on the internet, and that could represent the store poorly. So they've got to have a comfortable relationship with the people in the company.
They gotta be good. I think the struggle has always been that to be effective in marketing, there's 2 sides. There's the creative side, and there's like the analytics side.
Yeah.
And those two people, those are usually not two of the same people. You get somebody who's super creative and everything else, but then they may not care as much about doing all the A/B testing and this, that, and the other. But then if you get somebody who's only in the analytics side, they're not creating content that's worth really putting out there, or that is going to be shareable or really engagement worthy. It's very difficult to do. So trying to find that hybrid of that person who can do a great job on the content and do enough of the analytic and placement analysis where they're making it, they're not just creating great content that no one sees, but they're actually getting it out there. That's the tough thing. I think that's the thing that Ernie Williamson has to figure out, and that we've tried to figure out for 20 years, and we've failed consistently on it. We've had 2 things we failed consistently at. One was an e-commerce site, and 2 was this marketing piece. And I think on the e-commerce site, we're finally kind of slowly getting that turned around through Herculean efforts and massive cash investments.
Pieces of your soul.
Say pieces of my soul are probably the same thing in the marketing. And like anything, what we do a good job on some things with marketing. We do a great job with word of mouth. Like that part we're hitting it apart. Thank God, because that's the part that if you weren't doing that right, then almost nothing else matters. So I'm grateful for that. We've got a few like kind of niche oriented YouTube channels that are successful for us that we've done, but any of the rest of the social stuff has just been something that has been quixotic, I think, for us to try to tackle. That I think maybe going forward, trying to find somebody who's really an expert in that stuff that wants to be part of our team. I think I need to find that person who can represent us well, and that probably means A, asking ChatGPT how to find that person, and then B, having them on some kind of trial period to make sure that they can produce the content, even telling them, I will pay you like as a gig up front.
Yeah.
Provide this content. Let me see what you can do. And then once I can see that our visions are aligned, then you can be a permanent member of the team.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the way.
Or you create a few projects too before you bring that person on. We're trying to do this thing and we want it to be successful. Because one of the things we run into as we test out new marketing ideas is it's not always a 1-for-1. And that's a hard pill to swallow in small business, especially when we normally have our hands on the steering wheel of most decisions, and it's like, I did this thing and it moved this way and done. but like we're dealing with a year-long email campaign right now, and it's going to be hard to evaluate the effectiveness of this year-round email campaign until the year's done. And obviously, it's not a useless thing, but you have to be patient with some of these things, these marketing things. Sometimes you can run a sale and then nobody came in, so it's like, cool, we're not going to do sales anymore. Like, no, that's not true. Like, what about it was wrong? Or in this day and age, does it take 10, 15 touches before somebody responds to it? So you're going to have 10 or 15 sales nowadays before you get that one purchase out of it. And like, that's incredibly frustrating to come from a place where we used to be able to do, I'm going to do this thing and then I'm going to get this thing. And now it's like, well, I've got to do this thing many, many times and I may not see the results for a minute. And so it's changing a little bit of that mindset too. I know when we started pushing heavier on marketing, we would come with like, okay, you did that post. What was the immediate result? It was like, we can't grade it that way. And that's a newer mindset for those of us who have maybe been around for a minute and are used to saying, I put that ad in that yellow pages, or whatever it is.
What's the ROI?
Right.
What's my ROI on that one post? Yeah.
And so it's different. And so finding those people that are going to keep their finger on that pulse, not just one time, but they're going to go, right now, email campaigns are working. So I'm going to do this thing. And then a year later, nobody checks their email anymore. So we have to shift all of our marketing towards this. And that's just kind of the day and age that we're in. And that's going back to the original question. I think that's kind of what we're doing poorly right now as small businesses in the industry, is like, we need to just be on that. We need to be paying attention to that, and how we are going to reach our customers through their phones and their computers.
I think you're right. I think that's honestly a bigger struggle for those of us in the middle in terms of our size.
Yeah.
Because I think that many of the really, really big companies and big brands, I think they're doing a pretty good job of the marketing because they got all the money to go hire these professionals and do it all. I think some of the really small shops are hitting it out of the park because you got these creative owners and staff that are like just doing great, fun content because they sort of got nothing to lose and everything to gain. And they're just out. I mean, some of my favorite things I follow like on TikTok and stuff are small 1-person, 2-person, like just small entities. The cringiest, worst content I see is from the folks with 3 to 12 stores. Like they're big, they're they're pretty successful. Like it's just some of the worst content. They're just missing the mark. Like they just completely.
But it's what you were saying. It's hard to find that
follow trends.
Yeah, it's hard to find that person at that size because you've now got everything spread out. You got multiple locations or departments or all these sorts of things, and unfortunately, marketing is one of the last things to show up in our industry as we start building these other things. I'm going to build a rental fleet before I build a marketing department. Like that makes sense. And so once you have all those things, we're now stuck in this predicament of wanting to tell people about it and not knowing how.
I think our only way out, we're not going to have really the money and the ability to do what the big companies do. So I think as mid-sized business owners, we got to get down to the grassroots the way that those younger upstarts are and either get into it ourselves to do it, or maybe better yet, get someone else in to do it. But we got to make sure that that person we get in to do it is someone who can represent our business well.
You wrote it down, ladies and gentlemen. You wrote it down.
Don't just hand over the reins to someone and then they produce content that doesn't represent you well. So. So all right, we're going to bring this thing around the corner here and kind of sort of wrap it up. I'd be really remiss if I've got the damn YP president on here. If we didn't talk about mentorship, I probably would get fired here. So let's talk about. All my sponsors would drop out. But let's talk about the NAMYP mentorship and how important it is to have a mentor. And to have mentors. If you name my YP program is a great program, but even if you just don't do an official program, you just ask for someone. Let's talk. Tell me about like why you believe so strongly in the value of mentorship.
We could do a whole episode on this. I mean, this is huge. This is one of the reasons you and I have the relationship that we do, that we met. We knew of each other. we should tell the listeners, he just came by our store one day and was like, "Can I sit in your store for a day?" And we were like, yeah, I guess. He was like literally just asked to loiter, and he brought his laptop and just sat at a table all day and judged us. It was weird.
Basically, and it was 2 days actually, but yeah.
I stopped paying attention. I was just like, I don't know who that guy is. But then the opportunity came up years later as I was involved with YP, and I reached out because there's this mentorship program that existed, and it pairs people up with similar backgrounds and personalities and likes and visions, and puts them together and encourages a mentorship relationship. So, you asked, why is it important? This was something that the business that I worked for previously did not encourage. The idea that you were maybe wrong, but you didn't know everything, and that you needed help. And that's such a critical part of growth, right? It just in your personality, in your life, and especially in your business. And that's something, I'll go back to that other one. That's something our industry does really well, is we are really good at sharing information and stories and mentorship to each other. And that is something that we're really great at. So there was something that I wasn't turned on to. It was an aspect of the culture of that previous store that was not there. And when it came to IMC, it was very much like, oh yeah, you should reach out to people. You should ask them things. So when I became more involved in YP, NAM Young Professionals, this was a program that already existed and was flourishing and growing. And I'm lucky to just shepherd it, for the time that I'm in this position. But many people before me had built this concept in this program where you can get paired with somebody intentionally. And I think that's what's unique about this program, but you don't have to rely on that program to have that. And the benefit of it, it's huge. I mean, when we got paired up, we talk, and then I'd be like, I'm trying to buy a house, man. I've never done this. What do I do? We talk music store stuff, and it was amazing and useful. And then we talk family stuff or buying a house stuff, finance stuff. It was just finding that relationship that is outside of your immediate ecosystem, your store and your friends, your family. That's huge. It's absolutely huge and vital. And I am so grateful to the time that you gave me and are giving me. It's why I owe you, and I have to be on this stupid podcast. It's
exactly right. Exactly right.
But it's amazing. And it really is. It's so cool that there's so many people in the industry that are willing to give that time to each other. And, the plug for the YP mentorship program is do it. Absolutely do it. If you have some experience and some history in the industry, sign up as a mentor. Absolutely do it. The community needs your experience and your advice. And if you're new to the industry, this is the thing that you need. You need this thing. Ask the questions that you're uncomfortable asking your boss, maybe. Ask this other person. It's amazing. And these resources are just everywhere across the nation. We should clarify to maybe somebody who doesn't know, you're not talking about prices. You're not talking about, those aren't the things being discussed. Right. You're talking about concepts and ideas and experiences. It's incredibly vital. And I'm so grateful to the time that we got to have and, the relationship that we do have. And everybody should have something like that in their lives. It's so cool.
Totally agree. I've been on both sides of that coin. I've been a mentor, and I've been one who's been mentored. And I can tell you both of those relationships have just been so beneficial for me as a person and as a business person. And starting out as one who is being mentored, whether it's George Hines or Chip Overwater or Lee Coates, or any number of folks that I've had that have been mentors along the way. Like all those people willing to invest into me and to share with me and help me. I've just been, I would not be where I am today without those people, without a doubt. Would not have the success I have had. Would not be in the position I am without those people. And then as a mentor, it's been first of all, it continues that learning curve. Like in this our conversation today, like I got notes of things of like, oh, you said that's great. I need to get on that. Like that's a really good idea. So you continue to learn from each other, but also there's a very rewarding thing about being able to help someone else. And I can actually clarify it. I think even a little better than that. When we are a successful entrepreneur, we're a successful business owner, we're a successful business manager, we are constantly chasing the horizon. We are always looking out in front, always chasing this thing. And the problem with chasing the horizon is you can never catch the goddamn thing. Like it's always out there in front. You can never catch it. And over time, it can become demoralizing and you can become frustrated and tired because you just feel like you're just like chasing this thing's impossible. But when you are able to stop, and in mentorship, when you're able to stop and turn around and you see how far you've come, and then you get to help solve a problem for someone that you've already solved before. And sometimes you haven't solved the problem, but your experiences help you to solve their problem. It is so rewarding, and more than just a feel-good sense that you're helping someone. It's like rewarding to yourself of like, you know what? Even though I have failed in times, I have struggled at times, I've been successful. I am successful, and I've traveled a huge road to get where I'm at today that I don't always appreciate because I'm constantly chasing the horizon. So to me, being a mentor is just one of the most fun things. It's one of the biggest rewards of having the longevity and success in this industry. And you don't have to be hugely successful. You don't have to be Chuck Schumer or George Hines to be a mentor. You need to be probably somewhat successful. You need to like pay your bills and like have had some success, but you don't need to be like the pinnacle. Like you can just be, I got a good local business that serves my community and does a good job and I'm making a living. That can be success enough.
We talk about that with the YP program all the time. People will come to us and they'll say like, well, I want to be involved, but I don't know. Am I a mentee or am I a mentor? And we're like, well, tell me about what you do. And they're like, well, I mean, I've only been doing this 10 years and I run this medium-sized company. And I think I'd kind of like advice from somebody. And we're like, well, cool. There's a lot of people that have been doing what you're trying to do for decades. So there's a lot of people there. Also, there's a ton of people that have only been in the industry 5 years and you've been in it for 10 years and you've got twice as much experience as them. And there's a lot of advice that can be given. And so I think acknowledging that, like you said, that you've been places, you've done things, you've been running towards that horizon and you turn and look back, you've got some experiences to share. And if you're the kind of person that can articulate that and share that, then yes, you should be involved and you should give that back because it's absolutely rewarding and it only makes us better. It helps to clarify that and say those words out loud as a mentor. And then, like you said, you learn so much too in that position, the mentorship position, listening to somebody and sharing that information. It's huge. And gosh, as the mentee, yeah, of course, it's massive. The other question I get is on the mentee side, like, is this for me? Like, am I allowed to do this? And what does it entail? And is it a program? And do I have to sign a contract? Like, no, we're literally talking about friendship.
Right. Yes.
That's what mentorship is like.
Do I qualify?
Yeah.
Do I qualify?
That's like the big fancy word. It's like, we're pairing people up to be friends, and that's what it is you build a relationship with somebody. And so the gut instinct from some people is like, I don't need another friend. Like, but this is a unique friend. This is a unique friend that, yes, you do need this. You absolutely.
Yeah, this is a friend that's been there, done that, and is rooting for your success.
Yeah.
I think I would say though, like that is probably the qualification. Like this is if you are the one who's being mentored, the mentee as it were, you've got to accept your responsibility in this is that you have put the effort into building this relationship.
Yeah.
Your mentor has agreed to make themselves available.
Yeah.
It's going to be totally on you to schedule the meetings, to like come up with what you want to talk about. They're not going to train you. Your mentor is not going to develop you and train you like, okay, well, this is month 1 of our relationship and this is what we're doing. That's not it. That's not how it works. So if you're not willing to put the time into like, hey, I'm going to carve out an hour or 2 hours a month to talk with this person. I'm going to, as I'm going through my month, I'm going to have a little notepad on my phone about like, I should ask so-and-so about this. Like, if you're not going to put that kind of an emotional investment into this relationship, then it probably isn't for you. But if you are willing to do that and to take the time of that person who's willing to mentor you, take that seriously, then you're ready. And it's totally worth it.
I used to send you these long emails. I write long emails. My staff knows this. And
well, you don't have time to write a shorter email. If you had more time, you'd have written a shorter email. So you just gotta,
it's so much.
I get it.
And before we would have our scheduled meetings, sometimes it was word vomit, and sometimes I'd like really work on it. I was like, no, he really needs this concept to prepare, for this conversation. And I think it's incredibly valuable. And then you go to that meeting and you're walking into this call with me, and you've got a kind of an idea of where my head's at and what I'm dealing with. And then we can have a real conversation instead of just it being a waste of time.
Yeah. I had another mentee relationship that frankly just wasn't as good. I mean, the kid wasn't as engaged, wasn't as involved, wasn't prepared, didn't take it seriously. Honestly, almost didn't seem to respect this sort of sounds arrogant, which hell, I guess it's fine. I can be arrogant on this. Like, didn't respect my success. I mean, and it's not to say that like I'm hugely successful. People should respect that, but I'm way more successful than this kid was. Like, this kid hadn't done shit. And like he wouldn't like listen to anything. And I remember like I gave him some like, all right, man, here's the stuff that you should do. That's easy to do. You could have all this done. You can have all this done today. By the time we meet next month, like, I want to see that this is done. Like, you need to get these things. This is low-hanging fruit that's going to make an immediate impact to your business. And the next month, not only did we not do it, but he was just like, I just didn't really think it'd make much of a difference. And I was like, well, I'm doing here. Like, you don't care what I think. So why are we even here? Not that you have to do everything I say.
Right.
But when he's struggling and I'm saying, this will help. And you're like, I don't care if you've done this for 30 years. I don't want to do it. It's like, I just think he just wanted permission to fail.
Well, in a mentorship situation, both parties have to be willing to be part of it, right? I mean, like, it's just you have to be willing and open and excited for that to work. I mean, you're right. You can't just show up and be like, teach me how to be good at stuff. Like, no, you're not my employee. That's not what's happening.
It's Ryan from The Office when he invites Michael to come to his business school to give a lecture, and at the end he says something along the lines, I'll horribly paraphrase, but he's like, I want you to lead me. I want to be led. I want to be led though in the way that I want to be led when I want to be led. When I'm ready to be led. It's just like putting all these like limiting things on like, but only when I feel like, we all feel that way to some degree at time to time. So, well, this has been a lot of fun, my friend. And as I expected, just such a fantastic conversation, some of which I knew, like kind of what we were going to talk about. But as always, I always know there's going to be some fun detours that are going to be insightful and interesting. And I got as much out of this as probably anyone who's listening. I've made notes. I've got some things to work on and really enjoy it. And as I said earlier, I enjoy our friendship and relationship, and really appreciate that I could manipulate all that into getting you to do this podcast with me to help relaunch it. So it's up and going again. So I appreciate it. I
appreciate the opportunity. I always like talking to you, and yes, hopefully somebody got something from us chatting it up.
I have no doubt they will. All right, so NYP, get on that. If you're under 40, you can be mentored. If you're over 40, I guess we don't have to be over 40 to be a mentor.
No.
You just have to have like some amount of success. But look into it either way. It's definitely worth checking out. It's a great program.
Well, that's a wrap for this episode. You can subscribe to this podcast so you're aware of future updates, and rate and review while you're at it. Thanks for listening.